Our world is full of diagrams. Graphic representations of everything from the solar system to the hidden origins of life. They have a unique ability to express complex ideas simply, and an intellectual and artistic beauty that has the power to inspire awe and change our perceptions. A diagram drawn in the 1480s by one of the greatest creative talents of the Renaissance has gone on to become a world-famous image. This iconic drawing has fascinated and beguiled viewers for hundreds of years. From modern-day political cartoons to contemporary public art, it's now part of the fabric of our culture. The man who made it was Leonardo da Vinci, and the diagram is the Vitruvian Man. In it, he set out to capture, through science and art, the perfection of the human body. The diagram has so many layers to it. It's obviously about the body and human anatomy, and as you dig deeper, you see the geometry and the mathematics. But it's actually a solution to an ancient architectural problem, one about the relative proportions of buildings and men. Others before Leonardo had tried to solve this puzzle and failed. But Leonardo's solution with Vitruvian Man gives us a unique vision into the human body, one that's obsessively symmetrical, deceptively simple, but extraordinarily beautiful. Beneath the diagram's many layers is a complex image that shows man as the perfect geometric model for architecture, and that illustrates a profound idea that the human body is God's supreme creation, the ultimate expression of the cosmos itself. Leonardo da Vinci was one of the greatest artistic talents of the Italian Renaissance. Few places express better that explosion of ideas, painting, writing, architecture and engineering than Venice. Leonardo came from a small Tuscan village a few hundred kilometers from here. But like all artists at the time, he was constantly on the move. He worked in Florence, Milan, also here in Venice. It's difficult to know where to begin with Leonardo. He was an artist, musician, botanist, anatomist, engineer, architect. He was all of these things. He painted probably the most famous painting of all time, the Mona Lisa. He designed military hardware, and he was the first artist to cut open the human body and draw what he saw inside. And it's his drawings which are such an extraordinary legacy. Never has the thirst for knowledge been made so visual. Leonardo's drawings form a vast body of work, covering every imaginable subject in spectacular detail. Feet, skulls and hands, buildings, bridges and machines, muscle and sinews, hearts and lungs. Obsessively, he observed, dissected, and drew as no other artist had ever done before. For him, science and art were one. Their task? To reveal the perfect geometric proportions that governed all of the natural world. And the greatest of all nature's works, God's supreme creation, was man himself. In Leonardo's words, man is the model of the world. Like other great artists at the time, he was inspired by the rediscovery of the only surviving classical work on architecture by the Roman writer Vitruvius.
It contained a challenge that Leonardo couldn't resist. And his response to that challenge is housed here at Venice's Accademia Gallery. The diagram he created drew on his fascination with proportion and geometry in both architecture and the human body.
I'm really excited to get the chance to see this diagram. It's very rarely exhibited, let alone filmed. To actually get a film crew in here to see the diagram is incredibly special. I've been told it's on something called a no-lend list, which means it will never, ever leave this building.
Leonardo drew Vitruvian Man in the 1480s, not long after Vitruvius's seminal work on architecture first appeared in print in Europe. For any building to be beautiful, wrote Vitruvius, it must have perfect symmetry and proportions, like those found in nature. And since nature's most perfect object is man, a perfect building should be proportioned like the human body. Vitruvian Man was Leonardo's response.
So amazing to see the real thing. This is the one that Leonardo da Vinci actually drew in the sort of this brown ink on this beautiful piece of paper. There's something about it. It's kind of intensity and power which makes this image just so extraordinary.
The challenge Vitruvius sets is to place a man on his back with arms outstretched and to have his fingers and toes touch the circumference of a circle centered on the man's navel. And also to place the same figure inside a square.
There's something so timeless about this image. It's, you know, the human body and these mathematical geometric shapes. You can see the way Leonardo has carved into the page. You can really see he's almost digging this image out. It's almost not a drawing, but a carving. And you can see the little marks where the compass has gone in to make the circle and make these shapes. It's absolutely extraordinary. And you've got the writing around this describing actually what all of these proportions are about, because this is actually a solution to an architectural problem. And so there are the different proportions that the body has to each other. So, for example, it says that there are 4 fingers which make up the distance of a palm, and then 6 palms make a cubit, which is the distance from the top of my finger to my elbow. And then you can see that these 4 cubits make up the height of the man, so you can actually see the lines drawn. So this is all about the proportions of the body and its relationship to architecture.
The ratios in Leonardo's text all come from Vitruvius. The elbow to the armpit is 1/8 the man's height. The bottom of the chin to the nose is 1/3 of the face. They are perfect whole number proportions, 1 to 2, to 3, to 4. These perfect ratios bring together 2 ideas that underpin the diagram: that man's body is proportioned according to geometry and mathematics, and that those proportions, applied to architecture, will produce perfect buildings.
I'm intrigued to know, what came first? Was it the geometry and then the man was fit inside this, or did the man sort of force the geometry? I mean, there's something rather extraordinary about Leonardo's picture. He's got the center of the square shifted down from where the center of the circle is. It's a little bit of asymmetry here.
and the square doesn't fit exactly inside the circle. It kind of squeezes out the outsides. So for me, I'm just intrigued. It's how did he actually make this thing, and what does the whole thing mean?
The geometry of circle and square is the diagram's first layer of meaning. They were seen in the Renaissance as the most perfect shapes in nature. They were also key to Vitruvius. For him, the temple was the ultimate building, as it was close to God, and a square formed the floor, a circle the dome. Leonardo too was drawing many temples at the time he was making Vitruvian Man. Some of Leonardo's contemporaries also tried to solve the famous challenge. Assuming that both shapes had the same center, they produce figures that look all wrong, either sacrificing the man to the geometry or the geometry to the man.
I've been trying to work out how Leonardo actually cracked this puzzle of Vitruvian Man. I've been filling pages and pages of this pad, lots of circles and squares, trying to work out what is the proportion of the square to the diameter of the circle. I'm convinced that the answer to this is something mathematical, but maybe I would say that because I'm a mathematician. But Leonardo also believed in mathematics. He once said that he who does not understand the supreme certainty of mathematics is wallowing in confusion.
Remember that Leonardo was not only a superb artist, but also the inventor of flying machines and submarines. His ability to innovate, to think laterally, was key to his taking on the Vitruvian challenge, as Oxford's Professor Martin Kemp explains.
So is this Leonardo trying to solve the puzzle that's in Vitruvius?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a puzzle to many people. As you think you've got a square and a circle, you simply use the same centres. What Leonardo found, I think, is that he'd say, I've got to get a circle and I've got to get a square, and let's not assume they have to be on the same centre. And he's taken the navel as the centre for the circle, and he then finds to make the square work, he needs to slip it down. And that's the great move, and it makes the whole thing work in a particular kind of way.
The shifting of the centres of circle and square was Leonardo's masterstroke, successfully harmonising the relationship between man and geometry. He did it, it seems, just for himself. And this perfect union of art and science remained unknown for 300 years after it was made.
Leonardo would say that art is a science, a scienza. He sees something that perfectly fits its function, with no redundancy and no inadequacy, as being a perfectly beautiful thing. Therefore, form, function and beauty are locked in together. And that sheer perfection of the detail of everything out there, and its sheer mathematical beauty and its sheer mechanical beauty, is what the human being should do when they make their own things. So if you understand the geometry of the human body, when you design a little circular temple, the ghost of the Vitruvian Man is behind this. It's a reconstruction of nature on the basis of first principles, and there is no more prime principle in Christianity than the human body.
Beneath the diagram's geometry is its next layer of meaning, architecture. Those key principles of form, function and beauty that Leonardo applied to Vitruvian Man are also at the heart of Vitruvius's philosophy of perfect buildings. Those ideas were put into practice most famously by Leonardo's near contemporary